presentation over constructivism and my constructivist lesson plan. First, I'd like to start by talking about what constructivism is. It's an educational approach based on experiential learning, based on real-life experiences. For example, you give problems an ill-defined problem or situation, and they have to find a way to solve it. Now, in the process of solving it, they're going to learn a lot, and they're going to gain a very deep understanding of what they are supposed to have learned. It is an adaptive and student-directed type of curriculum in that it allows the curriculum to mold to the student. For example, if a student doesn't understand something that they need to understand, they can decide that they need to go back and learn something else. Constructivism, good, kind of an overarching thing. Students are given an ill-defined problem to solve. Now, in the process of solving those problems, they will construct their own knowledge and schema. Because as they are learning how it works and how it fits in to how to solve problems with it. The design of this type of curriculum can surpass traditional education styles such as lecture or drilling, especially when it comes to certain disadvantaged demographic students. You know, low socioeconomic minority students. There have been studies that suggest that this type of student-centered approach really helps those students to achieve more than a traditional lecture style. The good thing about constructivism is that it allows a higher level of thought to take place when we're talking about Bloom's taxonomy, whereas lecture will only cover knowledge, comprehension, and maybe application if you ask the right questions. Constructivism, while solving these ill-defined problems, students will apply, analyze, synthesize, and sometimes even evaluate how well their solutions work to these ill-defined problems. But not everyone agrees. There is some research that suggests that the constructivist approach does not prepare students for the workplace as well as more traditional educational approaches. These educational techniques take longer and cover less material. I believe that's the biggest reason why some people believe that it doesn't prepare students for the workplace. There's a lot of things students need to know. There's a lot of expertise a student needs to gain as they're learning. And one of the things that constructivism does is it does allow for a deeper application of the knowledge, but it does take longer to teach most lessons. I know constructivist classes I have taken, I've learned things very, very well, but at the same time, we didn't cover as much material as, say, a traditional lecture or, type drilling environment would get you. So there are some disadvantages to that. We'll go on to my lesson plan. In my classroom, I do use traditional lecture style and discussion along with some constructivist style activities for enrichment. This allows me to cover more material than if I were to do simply constructivist style activities, and on the difficult subjects that I believe the students need to work with, then it allows me to enrich those subjects. I do use one constructivist activity that's coming up as soon as spring actually shows up. We do an ecosystem project in my 7th grade classroom. The ecosystem project's pretty simple. Students are instructed to design a self-sustaining ecosystem in a container. The ecosystems must be well enough to design to remain healthy in the container for 2 weeks. Now, in order to complete their projects, the students need to know how ecosystems work. They're going to need to go research how ecosystems work. I tell them they can do whatever they need to do to research that. I give them resources. I give them the internet. I give them, their books. I could give them lectures if they want to know. And basically, they're going to work with a couple of partners, maybe by themselves, depending on the situation, and really design a good ecosystem. Now, just a possible projected timeline for this project. On, say, a Monday, I'll hand out the packet that describes it and explain my expectations. Students can check out laptops from our laptop cart to do research. They can use their book to do research, or they can even ask me. You know, heaven forbid you ask a teacher for some help. Nobody seems to want my help, though. They all want to do it on their own, which is great because you learn better by doing things on your own. And unfortunately, sometimes you don't learn the right things if you're not looking in the right places. So sometimes I have to kind of lurk around and guide them. That Thursday, students will usually bring in their completed ecosystems. They'll set them up near the windows because obviously they need sunlight. And then for the next 10 school days, maybe more, we'll spend 5 minutes a day. The students will observe their ecosystems, note the overall health of their ecosystems, and then every day we check it. And at the end of 10 days, the students, are able to take them home. They're able to, dispose of them. A lot of them have living animals, or sometimes by the end of this project, deceased organisms in there as well. So there's a lot of cleanup. Then they're given a couple of days. Say, we finish on a Friday. By Wednesday, I want them to have a short report to present to the class on their ecosystem. They can report on the strengths and weaknesses of their ecosystem design. Oftentimes, I ask them, if you notice something that didn't work, what could you do to make it work better? And students do a very good job of, teaching themselves what they could have done better in their ecosystems. My conclusion: I do believe constructivist style education and lesson plans are a great way to teach complicated subject, and they do foster a deeper understanding of the material than I believe lecture style does, especially since a lot of students like to tune out during lectures. Unfortunately, in my classroom, I do not have time to teach every standard I need to using these methods. I believe in a given year I have to teach somewhere between 14 and 16 different life science related state standards. So I have a lot of things to get through, and I wish I could do these big complicated projects for every single one, but I just don't know if I'd have enough time to cover all the material. Therefore, I try to mix up my approach. I try to do some lecture. I try to do some flipped classroom. I will cover it myself and then hopefully enrich that activity, or enrich the unit by adding these types of constructivist activity. I guess thank you very much for looking at my video, and